You're good? Okay. You guys ready down there? Ladies ready over here? Good? I'm ready. Excellent. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the September meeting of the Elizabethton City Board of Education. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to the new Mac Pierce Boardroom. We appreciate the turnout this evening, and at this point, I'd like to ask Mr. Alexander to lead us in a moment of silence and a pledge to the flag.
Please stand. As we pause for a moment of silence, I ask you to think of those in the Washington County school system, especially those students injured this afternoon, and may we, I imagine I can use the term, pray for them and their families, as many are critical. So please pause. Thank you. Now, if we could have the Pierce family. Oh, good idea. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Now, if we could have the Pierce family assembled in the back of the room. I'll just stand back here. We'll get the picture in just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mac Pierce was a teacher, principal, superintendent, board member, and it doesn't say on the plaque here, but board chairman, as well as director of the 1st District State Department of Education. 27 years alone of his service were in the Elizabethton City School System. We would like to recognize Mr. Pierce's son, Mike, his wife, Kathy, and Mr. Pierce's grandson, Zach, who are here with us this evening. We thank them for being present. We hope this room, which is much nicer than the other, much larger that is too, is a fitting tribute to Mr. Pierce's outstanding contribution to the Elizabethton City Schools and education in Tennessee as a whole. So if we could have them assemble, sort of scrooge in together, make sure that... As they're making those pictures, folks, I could cast my mind back and remember seeing Mr. Pierce, Frank Baker, Bill Armstrong, John Large at the old Lynn Avenue School. They were quite a group. I think at this time, Zach Pierce wants to make some comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander, and our board members and guests. I want to just take a very brief moment to speak to you on behalf of my family, the Pierces here, my parents, Mike and Kathy, who are great educators in their own right, and Mac's other son, Pat, who lives in Richmond, Virginia. Mounted here on the side of the wall is a picture of Mac Pierce, who served as superintendent of the Elizabethton City Schools, as Mr. Alexander noted, until 1974. This same picture sits in my parents' living room on West I Street. It's a house that Mac, or as I call him, Dada Mac, built after coming home from the war. To me, this photo embodies kind of the strength, foresight, and resolve that Mac Pierce brought to the Elizabethton City School System. even as he was my loving grandfather who would make me jelly sandwiches and watch Atlanta Braves games with me. There was also a man who grew up in the throes of Great Depression, came home along with millions of other great Americans in what we refer to now as the greatest generation to teach and eventually lead the school system through the end of the 60s and early 70s as superintendent, state liaison, and as alluded to, finally a school board member himself. This was a man that was loved by his family, respected by his friends and colleagues, some of whom have passed on, such as John Fleming, Harry Fine, and some others that Mr. Alexander mentioned, and some who still are with us today and active and present, such as Catherine Armstrong, Bill Armstrong Sr., who was my elementary principal and supposedly the owner of an electric paddle. I'm not sure if that's true or not. And so they serve today. Mac's passion for outstanding public education continues to thrive today under the current leadership of teachers, staff, administrators, and students alike. We sincerely want to thank those educators such as Mr. Alexander, Dr. Wandell, Mr. Little, Dr. Little. I'm not sure who's doctors now or not, but Mr. Colbert, Coach Pless, Mr. Hutchins, RV, Mr. Van Huss, just a wonderful group. And I just wanted to sincerely, on our behalf, thank you for taking the time to remember a great man. To me, he was the Gary Cooper of West I Street. My grandfather, an educator through and through, and a staunch supporter of strong public education. So thank you, and we do sincerely thank you for this memory.
Okay, it's okay. I'm not going to say anything.
I'd like to tell you that Zach is a very talented bluegrass player. He's very talented.
Ms. Armstrong?
Thanks. You don't have to just talk towards him. He's a very talented bluegrass, and he plays on Thursday nights with my son, Bill.
Oh.
And so they have a good time.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Very talented.
I'm friends with Catherine's son, and we play guitar, picking friends.
Yeah.
Until late hours Thursday evening, so stop on by. We've got a great guitarist right here, right, Mr. Little, and so next dental office is the place to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. I love you. He was also instrumental in this high school down here, building a high school. He was superintendent at that time, and of the new Harold McCormick. That was, well, I don't remember what year that was, but he, with the State Department, he was instrumental in getting volunteer high school built, which was built on Armstrong Farm.
Wow.
I know. And he was, I can't say enough good things about Matt Pierce. He's a wonderful, wonderful superintendent and man.
Thanks, Mrs. Armstrong. Mr. Alexander, you have a few more recognitions?
Yes, if Mr. Trent would come forward, please. We have some plaques up here for these gentlemen who've done a great job in supervising, coordinating what's done here today, and we appreciate that.
I'd like to recognize we've got witness tonight, Deputy Ward Paul Williams, Captain Roger Bailey, Sergeant Bill Williams, and Officer Mike Dyer. These gentlemen help, help is probably not even a good word for it. What they
they do for our school system and their community and their city is absolutely amazing. These guys bring the inmates in from the Rum Mountain Annex, is that the correct? They bring them in, and we're talking about really skilled laborers that just make bad decisions in life, and they come and give back to the community, and the amount of work they put in their school system is absolutely amazing. This right here is one example. These guys have been in here, selling, stage, a lot of this stuff is direct from the work of these guys where they come in here and supervise these gentlemen, and they're super work around. You know, it's a unique situation, and it's handled with utmost of professionalism when these guys are here, and we truly, truly appreciate it. They're in every school, starting as soon as the kids are out. They start, we try to get 2 weeks in each school. They stay an extended amount of time this year to help us out here at Central Office. And on behalf of the Elizabethton City Schools, we truly, truly appreciate you guys. Without it, I don't know what we'd do. It's absolutely safe.
Mr. Trent, are you going to give them the plaques?
You might as well just stay out there.
I may need my notes.
You can get up there.
Anyone who would forget the Pledge of Allegiance needs his notes. If we could have West Side, East Side President come forward, please. Well, we want to represent West Side first because they got 2 of their awards due recognitions, whereas East Side only received 1, but this is quite astounding. Talking about this, it says here, for being recognized, this is for West Side as an award school in the top 5% of the highest performing schools based on success rate and value-added scores, both of those. And so, Mr. Mitchell, it's okay for him to take a little bit of credit for this, but we're also going to have an afternoon of inflatables, things this way where the kids can have a good time, and also at a rest moment we will feed the faculty and staff when they don't have kids knocking down. Thank you. Anyway, so Mr. Mitchell here is receiving for the students, faculty, and administration of West Side School. For East Side, for growth only, correct? For being recognized as a reward school, and students, faculty, and administration of East Side, and Dr. Wandell's done a good job there. He's a neighborhood boy, and he's done well. Smile, appear to be happy.
Can I ask what classified as growth, you know, like for that achievement in growth?
It's TDOS growth.
Cool.
So both of those awards were based on the top 5% in the state?
That's correct. There are schools included, 1,736 schools in the state. Gentlemen?
Very impressive. Thank you.
At this time, we would have recognized Leslie Bradley, but she is at a volleyball game, and we will do this in October. Her plaque reads, the teacher of the dual credit course, Chemistry 1030, Introduction to Chemistry, which has been recognized as the most difficult dual-credit course at Northeast State. Her exemplary performance produced a very high passing rate with a 79% of her students making an A. So we will recognize her in October when she's not competing, if she's not in state competition. But she has done a tremendous job, and Ms. Emily will be making that presentation as the CET director.
Thanks, Mr. Alexander. At this time, it's time for citizens to speak in accordance with Board Policy 1.404. If you wish to come forward and address the board, please come to the podium, state your name and address. Seeing no one, we're going to move on the agenda. It's time to approve the consent and regular agendas. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Buller has made a motion to approve, and do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Birchfield has seconded the motion. I'd like to make a couple of changes on the consent agenda number 5. We need to pull that off. TSBA was that today, Mrs. Perkins? In the past day or two, made a revision to that, so we're going to have to pull it off. They made a substantial change to the number of meetings you can attend electronically. So we'll look at that, I guess, next month for the first reading. Okay? So we're going to pull that one off. And then on the regular agenda, item 14, we're going to pull that off the agenda. We're not ready to discuss that one quite yet. So if you'll please scratch that one. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
I would like to ask that number 9, there's one little issue I've got in that particular policy.
Number 9 on the consent agenda?
Oh, yeah, yes,
You want to move it to the regular agenda?
yes.
Okay. We'll move that to the last item on the regular agenda, number 9. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, the item on the floor is to approve the consent and regular agendas as revised. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, likewise. And the consent and regular agendas have been approved. Mr. Alexander, it's time for your report.
Now, prior to getting into personnel update, I would like to talk, we have some good things going on here, but I would like to recognize some individuals who are apart from those individuals who are supervising the prisoners. I would like to thank, of course, not only the state prisoners, but the county prisoners, and who made a tremendous contribution and come from the courthouse annex here in Elizabethton. I would like to say some things about our technology department. Certainly, Mr. Trent, you have in the back rear here John Day and Darren Brewer, both of whom are very sharp. But also Jason Lancaster was carrying those guys in the tech department while they were doing all the wiring in here. Okay, next our maintenance department, especially J.R. Rosenbaum, who did most of the woodworking here and in the floor of the base of this. Amazing craftsman, amazing. And of course Richie Burrow, who was his sidekick and assistant in that endeavor. We have a very special thanks goes to Felicia Baird and Ms. Ruth Petrowski for having placed these pictures. Had we waited for the supervisors to line up all these pictures up here, it'd be Christmas, I'm sure. But also Mrs. Perkins carried them as she held the till to make sure we stayed on course while those individuals worked in here. I would like to thank the board for allowing me to go to the the fall superintendent's conference, most of which was very good. One aspect of that, the professional learning communities, which Mr. Wright, I hope, will help me with further to work on, and the principals will actually be talking about working across the curriculum together strongly, and I'm looking forward to that, and I hope the principals are too. We're especially excited about the east side room renovation, the awning or the enclosed walkway at Harold McCormick, and of course the T.A. Duggar Fields. We have some of those on an easel back there that you can take a look at, and we're excited about doing that. Also, I would like to say the EHS Sports Hall of Fame, which I think Dr. Wandale is being introduced there as and inducted, will be on September 27th at 6:30. That's always a nice ceremony, and especially when they have people of our own involved in that. What I was going to say finally here is maybe a little premature, but the high school has received word from Sports Illustrated that they are considering Christine Harden as a candidate for the upcoming issue. If you'll recall, the board recognized her for participating in 3 sports in one season, which is really unheard of. But we understand that she scored her 100th goal in soccer and scored her 100th point in football the next day. So, folks, she is a consummate athlete. She has a 4.0 academic average, and she's beautiful. So, I mean, that's quite a combination, you know. Anyway, we told Mike Wilson that it was not the swimsuit edition that they were seeking her for. But anyway, moving right along, folks, that is my portion of that report. And as we move on, let's look at our rather lengthy list of personnel changes. First of all, new hires: Amanda Pike, T.A. Duggar science teacher, effective 8/21. Marshall Hardy, T.A. Duggar head boys basketball coach, effective 8/21. Ryan White, T.A. Duggar assistant baseball coach, effective 8/21. Andrew Stewart from the UK, T.A. Duggar head boys soccer coach, effective 8/21. Donnie Shipley, T.A. Duggar career interventionist, effective 8/22. Donnie Shipley, same individual, T.A. Duggar head wrestling coach, effective 8/22. Still going. Donnie Shipley, T.A. Duggar assistant football coach. He's a Renaissance man, effective 8/22. Suzanne Mitchell, EHS mathematics teacher, effective 8/27. Lisa Parrish, T.A. Duggar part-time mathematics teacher, effective 8/27. Jimmy Buck, Westside assistant to the teacher, effective 8/27. Sherry Nakoff, Westside interim teacher, effective 8/28. Amanda Ryder, previously a teacher at Westside teacher, effective 8/29. Dorothy Cornett, Westside lunchroom monitor, effective 8/28. Jill Buckles, Eastside assistant to the teacher, effective 8/29. Carolyn Ayers, Eastside part-time assistant to the teacher, effective 9/12. Carolyn Crow, Eastside part-time assistant to the teacher, effective 9/17. Jennifer Wetzel, Hare McCormick part-time assistant to the teacher, effective 9/17. Randall Taylor, EHS custodian, effective 9/19. Gina Johnson, EHS health science occupation teacher, effective 9/20. Resignations: Jerry Jenkins, EHS assistant track coach, effective 8/18. Whitney James, T.A. Duggar part-time assistant to the teacher, effective 8/27. Rhonda Bolton, Westside teacher, effective 8/28. Annie Ross, T.A. Duggar teacher assistant, effective 8/28. Lori Decker, Hare McCormick part-time teacher assistant, effective 9/7. Charles Miller, bus driver, effective 9/10. Jacqueline Hatfield, Eastside part-time assistant to the teacher, effective 9/14. Dorothy Cornett, Westside lunchroom monitor, effective 9/14. And now we go to transfers. Lindsay Musar, from interim teacher at Westside Elementary to new teaching position at Westside Elementary School, effective 8/17. Amy Tapp, from part-time teacher assistant at Hare McCormick to new full-time teaching position at Hare McCormick, effective 8/17. Julia Elizabeth Stout Holman, from part-time teacher assistant at Early Learning Center to new full-time teaching position at Eastside, effective 8/17. Gary Nidifer, from part-time bus driver to full-time bus driver, effective 9/13. Leave of absence: Jackie Harris, Westside teacher, from 9/4 to 1/2/13. Dismissal: Joyce McGrath, EHS custodian, effective 8/17. Substitute teachers: Stacy L. Williams, effective 8/15. Jennifer Woodby, effective 8/15 as well. Brandy McLeod, effective 8/22. Paulette W. Davis, effective 8/24. Julia Henderson, effective 8/24. Substitute bus drivers: Aaron Wood, effective 9/6. Matthew Carr, effective 9/6 as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Alexander. Earlier this week, several board members had the opportunity to go to our fall district meeting, and I was hoping that some of you all, or each of you, could deliver some comments to the board. Ms. Baker, if you'd like to start it off, and then we'll just Go this way.
I'll be very brief. It was very informative. And again, I thank you for allowing us to go. They mentioned the core courses, I believe that 46 states are involved in, and I was very impressed with that as far as the science and the math and how we are steadily growing and improving in the courses and the offerings that we're given. And they emphasized the math, which I was glad to see. So that's just a little that I got out of it, and I was very appreciative for it.
Thanks, Ms. Baker. Ms. Brewer?
Yeah, when they were talking about those classes, I am very happy I graduated a long time ago because, wow, our students, of course, they're going to come out stronger for it. We talked about a lot of different things. So we talked about the tools that we're going to be using to evaluate director of schools. That was very interesting. There's a little more accountability with individual, as board members, and there were some things that were very interesting. It was a good meeting. A lot of information. We moved very, very quickly. Mr. Alexander loved using technology to vote on things. They're trying to get us...
She's being facetious,
Very
folks.
much so. But they were trying to get us to get in the swing of things of more technology. And so we participated by using our phones to give our opinion on certain things that are people are lobbying for and different things like that. So that was kind of a fun into the evening.
Thanks, Ms. Brewer. Ms. Armstrong?
Oh, yes, I was interested in the survey that they were taking. They took it by phone. My phone was not with me. One of the questions they asked, could you use funds used for vouchers in private schools? Could you use those vouchers? And I voted yes. I don't know how you all voted, but I felt like that sometimes some students are just not fit just right into the public school, and maybe they need a private school or a religious school. I don't know. But I felt like they could use vouchers for that. And then I've been very interested in the legislature action on Public Chapter 991 at the age that a child enters kindergarten. I'm not real happy with that, but I know I can't do anything about it except let my people know, and I could do that. And then the superintendent evaluation, they gave some essentials for an effective evaluation. And I love the part on the Common Core standards. And then I got to thinking, has Connie Smith already been here and had that workshop?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Mr. Hutchins has her schedule.
Gosh, they were supposed to tell me, but I guess you...
October 16th.
October
16th.
16th. Thank you. And where is that? Here. And what
In this
time?
very room.
One session will be, the morning session will be for T.A. Duggar Junior High. The afternoon session will be for the elementary teachers. We haven't set a time. It'll probably be 8 or 8:30.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I want to learn more about that, hopefully. It was good work. It was pretty good, I thought.
I'm just disappointed that I wasn't able to attend. I was traveling this week, and I didn't get to vote on the vouchers for public schools, but I would have voted no.
I know. I knew you would. But that's okay.
I support I support
okay.
public education. So.
You should vote like you feel.
Yes, ma'am.
I needed to ask a question, and I let it slip by about the ball fields at T.A. Duggar, and I guess this is Mr. Van Huss. On those park... May I ask that question?
Go ahead.
Just one
Certainly.
question. The parking spaces, what number... Have you all counted how many parking spaces you're going to put? You're eliminating some.
Yes, ma'am. I don't have that drawing in front of me. I can look that number up and tell you. But basically, what's on there is to scale based on the number of slots that would be in that parking spot. So if you could actually count those spots on there, it'll tell you that exact number. But I can look it up and let you know tomorrow. I'll do the same thing.
Okay.
I'll sit down and count those and let you know.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
Sure.
How many they have. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Ms. Armstrong. Okay, we're going to move on to the regular agenda.
On the,
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Birchfield.
that 25 spaces out at this end and 28 over near the existing gym. 25 and 28.
It would be
Aren't
53.
they taking some of those? Are they taking?
Whatever's listed on that would be what would be there. That drawing that you have would be what would be there once the project is completed. So the count that Mr. Birchfield gave you would be what the count is.
Thank you, Mr. Birchfield.
Thank you all. We're going to move on to the regular agenda now. The first item you'll see is number 10, approve resolution with Citizens Bank with the federal ID 62-0730716. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Birchfield has made a motion to approve, and do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Boer seconded the motion. Mr. Alexander.
There will probably be board questions on that. Mrs. Wilson can respond to those. It's just that this will be utilized, the credit card situation will be utilized as a basis to make reservations and things of this nature, rather than our supervisors actually utilizing their own credit cards and things of this nature. Also, one thing I do want to point out is these credit cards will be secured in the business area. And it's not that these people carry these with them at all times. So in those circumstances, I think that some people from years past had a pretty bad taste in their mouth on use of credit cards, and I think the public is generally a little bit skeptical of school credit cards being carried by employees. But I can assure you that all our people are so far beyond reproach and honest that, and again, these will not be with them in person. They will only use them to secure reservations.
And additionally, this item also approves the current signers for the accounts that we have at each facility, as well as for the Board of Education. So, any other questions or comments on this item?
Good idea.
Mr. Cuddy, if this motion passes, I will need each of the board members to sign this document. Normally, it is just you and Mr. Alexander who signs, but on this particular one, I will need all 5 board members to sign.
Any questions or comments on this item?
Was there additional supporting materials for this particular item? It should be, I believe, I think.
It's 25.
It's attachment number 25 in your board packet.
Well, I thought, so this totals about what, 25,000? Right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, wait, there's actually two pieces of this. Number one, we're approving the co-signers or the signers, people that are able to sign checks for the school district or for the individual schools. That's part of it. The other piece of it is the Visa cards, which the supervisors can utilize to secure reservations and whatnot. I mean, they still get coded the same way to GL numbers and whatnot. It just streamlines their process. It's not like they have carte blanche to go out and spend $25,000 whenever they want.
Well, as far as the cards, how much is each credit card? Would they be able to?
It's listed there in your on attachment 25.
But I understand that about the accounts. But as far as the credit card, you're saying each credit card is going to be at...
That's the maximum.
No.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the maximum?
That's the limit.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so your maximum is 1,000, and Mr. Trent's would be 5,000, and
That's because they trust him more so than they do me, I guess. Just kidding. Now, he has to travel more than that.
as far as accounts for each school, I don't mind that, but as far as the credit cards portion, if we could separate the two, I would vote for the schools as far as the signatures, but as far as the credit cards, I want to say no. And these are combined together, so I can't. Can we separate this?
We can.
I don't mind signing.
We can do anything we want.
All right.
I guess I would just like to ask why. And it's the card itself is just a way to streamline the process. they still have to provide the same amount of documentation to Mrs. Wilson as they would if they wrote it out of their own pocket, the check out of their own pocket. The check's going to get cut, it just gets cut to a different person. The same, they still operate under their budget, the budget that the board sets that has already been set, and it just streamlines the process. So if Dr. Gardenauer is setting up, I guess, for a conference that multiple teachers have to go to, he can handle that all himself, so we don't have 10 different requests going to Mrs. Wilson. It's one request going, and again, it saves time for all of our faculty and staff members, it saves time for Mrs. Wilson, it's much cleaner, and it works.
Our office uses that. Where I work at at the school that I work at, we have people who travel a great deal. They all have cards used for these things. They use it for hotel reservations. They use it for rental car. It is a fabulous way to keep, great track record. You know where the money has been spent. They turn in their receipts. It's the same process. Just everything is much. The cleaner is really the best way. It's a great way to describe that.
And you can guarantee where the money was spent. Nobody can bring you up a jimmied receipt and say, hey, this is what I've done. I personally think that the school system's a business, and we need to run it like a business. And I carry a company credit card for my travel, and I am held accountable for that budget that I have. That's all.
What if, for instance, Dr. Gardenauer, if he reaches $5,500, but he still needs to do more, what happens? You have to come to the board and get a little higher ceiling there?
Well, the chances of that happening within any 1 month cycle are probably limited.
That's not his limit he can spend. That's just how much that card will hold at one particular time.
Right.
And
That's not the credit for the year.
And the bills are paid immediately when they come in. So under those circumstances, as you say, there wouldn't be.
Right. The bigger piece than the credit limit on the card is Dr. Gardenauer's budget for travel, or Mr. Van Huss's budget for travel, or Mr. Pless, or Mr. Hutchins. That's the most important number there. They're not going to overspend that because they've got to answer for any overages that they have.
I was on the board, a couple of superintendents did use the credit card, but didn't work well. And so it was voted out or taken out, and I can't remember which at that time.
I don't remember. That was before me.
No, it was before you on the board.
A number of businesses where you have, your accountants, they do not recommend having individual cards like this. And then again, there's some businesses, as Mr. Cooter says, like his, that does. And of course, we based our questions and our information on our previous knowledge and information that we've read and the type of work that we've done. And I do understand why this would be easier, but also it cuts down, like I said, we all turn in our receipts for anything that we do, and that's a must. And if we do something wrong and try to turn in a bogus receipt, of course, we'd be caught as well. But I'm just saying that's something else that would, not to say that anyone is dishonest. No one is. Not to say that I don't trust you. I'm just saying that this is a procedure that a lot of companies have backed off of, and a lot of accountants do not recommend.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Birchfield?
I currently have a card for my company also, and everything comes out of my budget. But what these guys are doing now, unless I'm wrong, they can tell you if Mr. Van Huss goes on a trip to Nashville, he has to guarantee that motel or travel on his own personal credit card, and that's not fair of us to ask them as employees to put this on their own personal credit card.
Well, of course, we do that, though, Mr. Birchfield, when we go on the trip.
They're employees, we're elected
I
officials.
understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying that, I understand.
I know, but Mr. Birchall was alluding to is that the supervisors are guaranteeing those room reservations and everything. If we send 8 or 10 teachers then they have to absolve the cost of all of that themselves.
Yeah, so we're asking the teachers to do that very same thing, and I would think that, I can't speak for any individual, but there's probably some instances where it may be potentially a hardship for those individuals to do so.
That's
Dr.
correct.
Cardinale.
But we've had situations like that in the past. If I was going to take 5 or more teachers, they may stay in a couple rooms together. If I'm securing all that with my credit card, depending on which hotel we stay in, they may go ahead and charge the credit card for a certain portion of that, mostly the first night. But when you have 4 or 5 rooms, I'm also carrying the interest for that on my card for that period of time. And if we have a school system that's tax exempt and so forth, and we tell them we're with a school system and we'll send a check, most of the time they'll work with us, not always. And so it's a personal expense. It's it is a hardship, and I've had it also happen that depending on what they've done with that, they'll say, well, a credit limit on your credit card, if you're going up $4,000 or $5,000, $4,000 or whatever the expenses are going to be, they say we won't guarantee it because you don't have enough line item on your credit card to do that. So you end up coming back. We go back through the process with business and finance. We have them cut a check, and it sends to the vendor. If there's any problem with it getting there, that's an issue. It just, I think, would streamline it a lot to really help us. I know Mr. Hutchins, probably more than anyone else, travels with multiple people to the Title I conference, and he carries more than 5 people to those. A lot of times he'll take 8 or 10 teachers to that, and that's a lot of rooms. So.
And even though you're being reimbursed maybe for something you put on that card, the interest you're not going to be reimbursed. So
that's
you're
correct.
going to be charged the interest and paying that out of your
right.
pocket, and that's not fair to ask anybody to do.
Now,
Us or teachers.
Under one superintendent, the board chairman had a credit card too. I mean, I guess it just got so widespread.
Well, and I think, I'm not going to say that was reckless, but, we could make it look like however we want, but I think that we don't need one. We don't travel that much. I mean, you go to one conference a year that you travel overnight for, more than likely, or unless you spend the night at Pigeon Forge at the Summer Law. Right. And I don't know. I would hate to look a teacher in the eye that's registered for a conference, and they registered 2 months in advance, and they're paying, number one, for the room, and then the interest on that, which is minimal, but at the same time, we're not paying them for that interest, and this accomplishes the same thing. It takes some hardship off of them. It's simple for everyone, and it just makes sense.
And I can assure the board that Mrs. Wilson would not recommend anything because she is very, very frugal with the monies. I can assure you that.
One comment I would like to make are more and more motels are not accepting school system checks as a method of payment. They want a school system credit card.
Exactly, and that's also in case there's, the check could be fraudulent. They already know when they take the reservation with the credit card whether it's good or not. And they also want some recourse because when you check in, I can't imagine, I check in the hotels several times a week, and they want a credit card when you check in. And I would bet that even though these folks have paid with a check previously cut from the school system, they have to put their credit card up anyway. And so they're responsible for anything else that goes on above and beyond that. Again, I think it makes sense. The board's not going to have a credit card. The board chairman is certainly not going to have a credit card. I haven't asked for reimbursement in the 8 years I've been on the board from the school system one time. So, I think this makes a lot of sense.
Will that then be printed into our budget where we can look and say, oh, Dr. Garnell spent so much on?
Well, it's already there. I mean, if those
Under the
charges
same
hit,
number?
yeah, they hit the same GL numbers that they would hit anyway. Again, this is just a vehicle to make these payments or to get reservations, to make it simple. I would say this. I think the board should try it. And if it's not working for you later on, cut it out. You have that opportunity.
It just went wild under one. Oh, it was awful. One board member talked about 5 or 6 breakfasts and was going to the weight room at Opryland. It just got bad.
Well, the good news is the board members won't have one.
I know. I agree.
And I'm not sure that anybody on this board would do
Oh,
that.
no.
So.
No, not at all.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Ms. Perkins, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. Armstrong?
I feel a little uncomfortable, so I'm going to pass on that vote.
Ms. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Cooter?
Aye.
Ms. Baker?
I want to say no for the credit card and yes for the schools, but I can't split that. So my answer would be no.
Mr. Birchfield?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes, sir. You have a pass equals a no vote.
Correct.
So you have 2 noes and 3 ayes.
So the motion is approved. However, this document requires 5 signatures.
That's correct. And I would defer to Mrs. Wilson to let her explain what the bank had said to her.
Mrs. Wilson, could you please explain that to us?
The resolution document has to be signed by all 5 board members that the board approved those people to be signatures at the bank and that they approved the credit cards be issued to those individuals.
So that document doesn't say that the individual approved anything. The document says that the board has approved this motion. Correct? Does everybody understand that? Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on the agenda. If I can get this bag out of my way here. The next item on the agenda is to approve the fluid milk substitutions policy for Elizabethton City Schools. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Boer has made a motion to approve, and do we have a second?
I second.
Ms. Baker seconded the motion. You'll find that as attachment number 26 in your board packet. Mr. Alexander.
Dr. Gardner, please work hard on this endeavor. Which is very technical, by the way, but go ahead.
This is a report card, correct?
No, sir, this is a fluid milk substitution.
Oh, sorry. I was jumping ahead to something else. The fluid milk substitution, we had a lot of discussion here at the central office talking about what we were going to do for children who had lactose intolerance or just had a general milk allergy of a certain time, some calcium in different situations. We met as a central office staff along with our Teresa Robinson, who is our head nurse, and Mary Ann Williams, who's our food service director. We looked at the state law and we figured out that what we need to do is to approve a milk substitution for students if they would want it. Some parents choose to pack their children's lunch, send a fitting substitution for them based on that. And that's certainly fine, but we felt that we needed to go ahead and do that for them. And we have a product that is approved by the State Department of Education as being, and the federal government as being a substitute that we're going to purchase for those children. We've been in the process of contacting all the children and our milk vendors that we deal with currently to make sure that we were able to do that. We found a vendor here, Ingalls and Food City both carry this product that we could purchase that for them if the child needed it. It's one of those that's not going to require a federal 504 plan for them. It's just an allergy that they have. We'll be fully reimbursed for milk substitution since it meets the federal guidelines for that. And we're going to allow parents to write us. We had a lot of discussion about whether we should require a doctor's note or we would allow parents to do that. And researching that, we found out that a parent note would be okay. And all of you know that the soy milk is not the best tasting, so we didn't think there would be a big problem with that among a lot of kids just really wanting that. But we are going to make that available to them. So appreciate your approval of that.
Appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Gardenauer.
Dr. Gardner? Yes. Approximately how many do we have?
Right now we have 15 that we've identified through our school nurses that have a milk allergy, and we only had one parent request it at the beginning when we started really researching it, a possibility of that, and we told her that we would look into it, and I think up to this point haven't had anybody really. I think that parent's going to go ahead and send something with their child for that and take care of it that way. So, but we're in the process of contacting everyone. So
I didn't know they served chocolate milk. Do they serve it in the school?
Chocolate milk, I'm not sure. They do. They apparently serve chocolate milk there.
I didn't know it's got to have a sugar content, and that's why I was wondering, are they serving chocolate milk?
I'm sure it's, if we look at the federal guidelines for a reimbursable meal, they count that in as part of the dietary regulation that goes along with that meal. So if they're giving them sugar or a possibility of that, they'll cut it out in another area, possibly. Give them fruit instead of peaches and heavy syrup or something like that.
Any other questions for Dr. Gardenauer? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, the item on the floor is to approve the fluid milk substitutions policy for Elizabethton City Schools. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, likewise. The motion has been approved. The next item on the agenda is to approve purchase and installation of replacement lighting for Elizabethton High School Gymnasium through GSA for a total cost of $24,731.59. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Birchfield has made a motion to approve it. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. You can find this as attachment number 27 on your board packet. And I think Mr. Trent's going to address it.
Mr. Trent has worked hard on this, and this is really a win-win situation, and he's going to explain that to us here.
Well, in short, we're going to change all the lighting out in the Elizabethton High School gym and the mini gym as well, taking the metal halide lights out that take a while to charge back up. These will be instant-on lights. It'll double the lighting in the gymnasium. We're also going to fix it so you can turn sections of it off, because when it doubles the lighting in the gym, we're going to be able to shut some lighting off in the bleacher area, save electricity. They guarantee a payback on this in under 2 years. I believe it's like 1.9 years. Those are super conservative numbers. Those are based on numbers that less than what we use our gym right now. And in all honesty, we'll probably get a payback about 1.25 years on this. It's really a no-brainer.
So what you're saying, Mr. Trent, is that based on their estimates, in 1.9 years, the savings in electricity will pay for the cost of the lighting and installation.
That's correct.
Does everybody understand that?
That's amazing.
And the most important thing is, as a principal of the high school would tell you, is it's eliminating the instant. It's creating an instant on rather than having those lights when they're cut off. Spend 15 minutes with the 2,500 people in the gym and wondering what's going on. Folks, so with that in mind, I'm sure that Mr. Wright would prefer that you have instant on lights if they were to be, turned off temporarily there or accidentally.
Well, I have a personal story that during my graduation from Elizabethton High School, I was reading during the ceremony and all the lights went out.
Oh my God.
And we, at that time, for whatever reason, they allowed us to have candlelight up on the stage. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading by very little candlelight. And, of course, today I'm sure I couldn't read what was in front of me because I wouldn't be able to see it.
How long ago did you graduate that you had candles?
Well, in addition to the gym lighting. And so this would eliminate that problem because it took, 15 minutes for the lighting to come back on, and that was pretty bad. So anyway, this is something that we talked about, lighting changes a couple of years ago, and we're able to start making some of these things happen. And it's great when these projects are going to pay for themselves. We're going to get better lighting, more energy efficient, and these type of projects, when you have a little bit of cash and you can spend the money on it, they're going to make money for you later on and keep paying down the road and allow us to do some other things, which is great. I think we're also still working on controls at the high school as well, which is going to be great too if we ever get that done. That's awesome.
Did they ever correct the disability seating down there? Was that correct?
We have the same seating as we've always had there, and
but not anymore. Nothing.
no, ma'am, not anymore. No, ma'am.
Any other questions on the lighting? The item on the floor. Hearing none, the item on the floor is to approve purchase and installation of replacement lighting for the Elizabethton High School gymnasium through GSA for a total cost of $24,731.59. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, likewise. And the motion has been approved. The next item on the agenda is to approve revised first grade student report card beginning with the 2012-2013 school year. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mrs. Boers made a motion to approve, and do we have a second? Mr. Birchfield has seconded the motion. You'll find that as attachment number 28 in your board packet, and again, it's effective this school year. Mr. Alexander.
Mr. Mitchell, come forward.
Is he speaking for all the elementary principals at this point?
What had occurred is last year we had, or you all had approved a change in the first grade card that we went to a checklist instead of using letters and numbers. After the implementation of new Common Core standards, our teachers found that the old checklist did not reflect what our students were being assessed for. So this change reflects, if you looked at an old one and a new one, there's very few changes on there, but the wording and the verbiage that is used reflects, especially in math, the changes that have occurred in instruction for Common Core. And so that's the majority of the change. There are a few where they took that was repetitive language and put it together and simplified it into one statement. And that's the changes that are on the new card.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Mitchell? Thanks. Does anybody have any questions about this item? Hearing none, the item on the floor is to approve the revised first grade student report card beginning the 2012-2013 school year. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, likewise. And the motion has been approved. The next item on the agenda is a discussion item to discuss additional classrooms at Harold McCormick Elementary. Ms. Baker, you asked for this to be put on the agenda.
Yes, in talking with some of the parents and people that have been, that have children going to Harold McCormick, they were talking about the carts as far as, I think the carts are used for computers, music, and art. And Mr. Colbert was kind enough to talk to me after I had talked to some of these grandparents and parents this afternoon, and I do appreciate it. Thank you. So I was asking him how he felt, because they were telling me, they said, well, we need about 6 or 8 new rooms down there. I said, really? I said, okay. I said, let me get with the principal, because I had got this information more than once. And in talking with Mr. Colbert, he did emphasize, I believe there was a special ed class that had been moved, and I think it might be a little smaller than what the regular classroom was. Also, the past 2 years, he's had to add a new kindergarten group, and of course if it keeps on, he may have to add another one, and of course he does have high numbers there. He has 3 classes that's on quartz, the computer, music, and art. And of course, I'm sure all of us remember going to art class in the art room, music, where they had keyboards or other little, what do they call them, the little flutes? Those type, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. We're not quite there yet that we can't remember using them. And he also told me about the reading coaches, reading coach and math coach, that they had offices. And I'm sure from time to time, if they have a larger group, they could possibly share a room. So I can understand where some of these parents and grandparents and people that have relatives that are going to school there would like to have more classrooms. And in closing in that walkway, there's space there, and I was hoping when he did the drawing that he could possibly look at adding maybe a few of those classrooms on that side, which would not interfere with the playground or other areas, because they do have land there. So as far as my discussion, this is what I was wanting to talk about and have us look at making some of these changes and helping his darling children out down there.
And his darling children at Harold McCormick have the same difficulties that the darling children at Eastside.
I understand that.
And the same darling children at Westside have.
I understand that.
What you all need to know is that art, as well as music, in both of those elementary schools, just like Harold McCormick, are on carts. They all have the same problems.
The technology as well, the computer classes?
Not the computers at this point.
Okay. Wilson?
Your computer lab is gone?
Eastside's the only
So Eastside's the only one that has a computer lab. Congratulations, Dr. Wandell. Temporary, and that's right. And that's with growth comes potential problems, and that is a problem. So while I understand what you're saying, we're facing that growth problem in every school that we have. And so it's something that we obviously have to keep an eye on. But again, the problems experienced at Harold McCormick Elementary, we have those at all three elementary schools as well.
But something I'm very happy with is while they may not have their own classroom, they still have art, they still have music, and they still have computer. Is that correct? So we're still offering it, we just don't have a room for it. And as long as, I know we'd all like to always have those things, but as long as the kids are getting it, then, that's what's important.
How do you teach a computer class on a cart? I thought like Eastside, you have the computer. Oh, you use the little.
Would one of you guys like to come up and talk about the mobile carts?
I mean, I always thought the rooms had computers there for the children.
Well, one of the things about having computers in the rooms, that's going to be obsolete soon. Because, knock on wood, hopefully, kids are going to have their own device. I was in a school just today that they didn't carry books. Yeah. And it's a private school in Knoxville, but they all carry an iPad. And even the lower elementary grades, they have iPads. And, books, media centers, they've seen their better days, I think.
But yes, iPads is what we're using. When we took apart our computer lab to make room for the new kindergarten classroom this year, those computers did not obviously get thrown away. We've tried to put them back in as many other places in the building as we can. The library took the majority of them. But in the meantime, we still have a Title I computer lab person there. We were able to use Title I funds to purchase some iPads so we can download apps, which there's a lot of good free apps out there for the iPad, as well as we can still use it for internet purposes to use some web-based sites for various instructions. So we have a cart. It's obviously a lockable cart. We lock it up every day and so forth to make sure everything's secure. Everything can be charged at one time. It's a pretty good setup. It's new to us, so we're working through some kinks with it. I'll grant you that, but we're pretty happy with it for the few weeks we've had it.
Well, it's a good thing you've got an elevator in that school.
Yes. That's right.
I tell you, think about going down 2 flights of steps to the next level, and there were 3 classrooms. Are there 3
There's
classrooms
3 classrooms
in there?
underneath
and
the
then
cafeteria.
On the stage, they have a class.
Our art is actually on the stage of the gym. It's not on a cart. The
Yeah.
art classroom is the stage of the gym.
But you know what was missing down there, and I thought about this all afternoon? They'll have you washrooms. There aren't any if a child's sick and throwing up,
Where?
you have to go up 2 flights of steps to get a washroom.
We have to go up
Definitely the
a level, yes.
One level.
Yes, right next to the cafeteria, the main bathrooms.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just have that. And I even asked my husband about that since he was there a long time, but they need a washroom on that level. I mean, it's not your problem. It's our problem. But you need a washroom on that level for those children. And that's just good sense, I think. I'd hate to send a child out of the classroom, and now we used to send them everywhere.
How many computers are on that card?
Our mobile iPad card is 26. I'm not sure if Mr. Mitch or somebody else wants to talk about their card, but we have 26.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yours is coming, I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Colbert.
Thank
Any
you.
other?
That school does need to be looked at. We need to maybe take action on that next board meeting some way.
Ms. Armstrong, I don't disagree with you.
I know.
What I would say is we need money to do all these different things. I mean, we talk about it time and time again. You know, we need money, and where does our money come from? Money comes from 3 pots. It comes from federal government. It comes from the state government. It comes from the local government. Okay?
Oh, yeah, I know.
And in order for those to do those type of things that we all want to do, our newest school in this school district is 40 years old. That's not real new.
Which one? High school.
The high school.
Oh, the high school. Oh, the high school. One of these days, there'll be a new high school.
I don't know. I'm not sure where we'll put it. So, anyway, any other questions or comments on the discussion?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda is to review Board Policy 2.401, Gifts and Bequests. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Moore's made a motion to approve, and do we have a second? Mr. Birchfield has seconded the motion. You can find this as attachment number 29 in your board packet. Mr. Alexander.
I think that was requested by Mrs. Armstrong.
Oh, Mrs. Armstrong.
Thank
Ms. Armstrong, thank you.
Since we'll be getting some, and have already gotten some donations and gifts, I just thought, and even I had forgotten parts of it and how these donations and gifts are handled. So I thought, this needs to go into a board packet, not for a vote, really, whatever, but to kind of refresh our memory on how this is to be done. So I put it in here, and more or less just so everybody would, as I said, maybe read over it and see, and where the money's going, that sort of thing. I've already asked that.
Okay. Any other particular items you need to point out or would like to point out?
Pardon me?
Any other particular items, specific items you'd like to point out?
No, I highlighted 2 or 3 that I thought were, that I had really forgotten. That one, any supplies, shall be reported to the board at the next regular scheduled meeting. And as people donate, the board is to know who they are and how much they're donating. So that's a good thing. That's just for your education.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
If there's no further questions, we're going to move on to the last item on the agenda, and that is item number, actually 17 at this point, which is the old number 9 from the consent agenda. This item is to approve second reading and adoption of Board Policy 5.803, evaluation of the Director of Schools as revised. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Brewer has made a motion to approve, and do we have a second?
I second.
Mr. Birchfield has seconded the motion. You can find this as attachment number 10 in your board packet. Mrs. Armstrong, you had a question, so you fire first.
Thank you. Lines 17 and 18, were they in the old policy? I didn't compare to see. At a time agreed to by the board and the director, the board will meet as a body to evaluate the director's performance. As long as I've been on the board, we have never done that.
Right. Yeah, that's...
Was that added?
No, this is the TSBA version.
This is TSBA?
I do not have our version.
That was included in last month's packet.
Right.
Okay. But ours doesn't.
So ours doesn't include that currently.
Does it?
Without telling you word for word, with having the other one in front of me, no, sir, I couldn't answer that accurately.
To my knowledge, and...
We never have, and that's why...
Yeah, that's right. I feel very strongly that was not included in there previously.
I wouldn't think so. That's
And I don't know. I don't think it is. But again, just because that's in TSBA's policy, and
right.
we don't necessarily adopt
Right.
every policy verbatim that they propose to us, we don't have to as long as it doesn't act in conflict with the law.
Exactly. Well,
That's
I thought
correct.
that's going to be, to get together is really hard for even 5-member boards, so.
Ms.
If
Burns?
you do not want that in there, you approved that wording last month, though. So
Right.
if you don't want that, then you don't need to adopt this on second reading.
Right.
You need to relook at it, reword it, and we'll bring it back next month, first reading again.
Well,
So
something they
if you're
brought
not
up-
happy with the way this is worded, because that's the wording that you voted on last month, then we've got to not vote for it this month in order for it not to
Bring it back
pass.
and rework it.
Something they brought up, they kind of went over some things that they were talking about for us to look at on superintendent's evaluation, and they even took it a step further. Other than just meeting as a body, one of the things that Mr. Bennett talked about was actually each board member would meet with the superintendent individually to go over the evaluation. And the reason why he said that is sometimes we're not always aware of everything the superintendent does. And he used the example of, well, I can't remember if he did this one or not, but maybe a board member doesn't think that superintendent is in the community enough. And so you would score that person low. And then when you would meet with them individually, the superintendent would have the opportunity to say, well, actually, I've done this, I've spoke here, I've done this, I've done that. And that would give the board member, after being, a little more informed, the opportunity to change his or her evaluation. It places a bit more responsibility on the board member that, you just don't sit at home and just score. You sit and you talk, and the director of schools would have the opportunity to, explain, maybe re-educate us. We don't know everything Mr. Alexander does. He gives us a ton of stuff, but that was their thinking, and that was Mr. Bennett's suggestion, that actually we would take on not only just meeting as a body, but we would meet individually, and then we would have the opportunity, obviously, to meet again. But that was they took it a step further.
I know, excuse me, in state law, of course, we've been doing a reporting to that, where the chairman reports the final numbers to the board. So I thought that worked very well.
Mr. Hutchins, do you have the current policy that we work under?
The current policy in line 15 and 16 says, in January or soon thereafter as practical, the board will evaluate the director of schools' performance. That's what's current.
Okay. Ms. Baker?
I think this session was very good, and of course, last month I had asked to hold up in case Mr. Bennett presented something that we had not covered, in ours. And of course, It was excellent, and there was some material that was given that wasn't covered.
There
Doing
was
that,
something
so-
that he suggested to do in a policy
Well,
that wasn't
no,
included in
well,
this?
Not really, but
Okay.
it was some additional information that I had not
Okay.
had during that session, and I thought it was excellent, and I did appreciate it.
And that's why last month, Mr. Cooter explained that if you did vote, which you did, to
Yeah.
pass this on first reading, that you would have the opportunity
Sure.
tonight to vote it down if you did want to change something, that you were not locked into an automatic passing on this.
Right.
So, you know, whichever way after attending the fall district meeting, if you feel that this is not something that you all want to go forward with, you need to not vote it in for second reading.
Well, it says will, doesn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
It's another form of shall.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, obviously, the next time our director is being evaluated, I'm not going to be on the board. But I think it's important because to meet as a body, to discuss the evaluation and not just have one person say, here's the results, you make of it what you want. I can, as I have as board chairman, deciphered through the comments on there and the scores and talk about what I think it means. But I think it's even more powerful if you sit back and discuss with the director because, it's a grade, it's a critique. It's about getting better. It's about doing your job better or showing, hey, this is what I'm doing. Because a lot of times, nobody knows how good of a job you're doing unless you point some stuff out to them because it may not be something that one of the board members is focused on. And we're like, oh, I had no idea. So it's an opportunity to critique and learn and grow as a director of schools and as a board. If we do the same thing over and over again, at times it can become futile. I will say the current setup that we have, as my tenure has passed on this board, I'm trying to think of a good word. It's almost meaningless. That's what I'll say at this point. Because I have to interpret what individual board members are commenting on, and I personally don't have enough knowledge on individual comments to actually make heads or tails. And I think it would be best if we met as a group, or the board met as a group with the director of schools and had a good conversation so everybody's on the same page, so we as a body can move forward and do the best job possible for this school system and this community.
Mr. Chairman, may I say something? Since we're talking about the position that I currently occupy, I think the principals would say that the most valuable part of a team evaluation is the reflecting periods that when they sit down with the teachers and discuss good and bad things that are occurring in the classroom during the lesson. And so I would very much appreciate the opportunity. I'm sure anyone else who might be in this job sooner or later would appreciate people looking me in the face and saying, this is what we need to do. I can take it if it's negative and things of that nature and try to work on it. But again, in the past, all I've gotten is board members either said I did something or I didn't do something.
Sure.
And that's it's hard to understand from the comments what I should be doing differently.
In addition to that, something different is that the director of schools is going to conduct a self-evaluation. So just like I think the teachers perform a self-evaluation, so you have two documents. This is how I think of myself, and this is how my employer thinks of me. You're going to get a really good picture of what reality is. And I think that's very important. A very important type of feedback so you can grow and improve.
You said something I think was really interesting. You talked about areas of focus, and each one of us are honed in on different things. And if we sat in a group setting and I listened to what you were really interested in and what you were really interested in, you were really interested in, it would help me grow. I know the superintendent, I just think it would really, we would operate more as a body more than as just individual members who just turn something in. I think it's a healthy, I would want to be evaluated that way.
Sure. Any other comments? Mr. Birchfield?
I-
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Baker.
Even as board members, I believe it's on level 4, we're to evaluate ourselves.
Mhm.
So by all means, I think that's very good. And that's something that, regardless of what position you're in, that needs to be done.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? The item on the floor is to approve second reading and adoption of Board Policy 5.803, evaluation of the Director of Schools as revised. Ms. Perkins, could you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Birchfield?
Aye.
Ms. Baker?
Aye.
Mr. Cooter?
Aye.
Ms. Boer?
Aye.
Ms. Armstrong?
I'll vote aye.
Thanks, Ms. Armstrong, and the motion is passed. That's every item on our agenda. The next regularly scheduled board meeting will be Thursday, October 25th at 6:30 p.m. here in the Mac Pierce Boardroom. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.